Welcome to Gorilla Sports Off Field. I'm Liv Moods, and in just a moment, joined by Brandon Cristal and Nate Jackson. And this is presented by Trusted American Mortgage. Trusted American salary-based mortgage consultants want to help you get into a better interest rate and lower your monthly payments. So head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save money today.
Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Welcome to the show. Yeah. All right. Happy Thursday, Friday Eve. We are back with Gorilla Sports Off Field. Woo!
That's right.
We're going to talk a lot of football. Fellas, how we feeling? I actually didn't join you guys yesterday, but you guys had a show.
We had a show to kind of talk about some of the breaking news and
Lots of breaking news.
But we're going to circle back on that and
course.
talk about it in more detail. But the Broncos are signing pretty promising players.
I mean, does it feel like they're kind of like
winning?
They are nailing it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, when you compare what they're doing to other teams, it feels like the Broncos are just kind of on a heater.
Yeah, BK. I mean, you know, you've been covering this for a while.
We talked about it yesterday. They are getting the low end of the market, not bargain basement, but low end of some of these signings. When you look at a little bit of a deal on Dre Greenlaw coming off an injury, a little bit of a deal on Hufanga coming off a wrist and a leg thing 2 years ago. So 10 games 2 years ago, 7 last year. So you're getting him for less than the top market value. Evan Engram had a down year, had shoulder surgery in December. Pro Bowl season 2 years ago. He's a 2-time Pro Bowler. Because I went back and looked that up after we're sure he went to the Pro Bowl, right? So 2-time Pro Bowler, getting him as the 10th highest paid tight end right now. Yep. If he performs the way he can, he's a top 3 kind of tight end. And so you're getting a bargain there, saving a few bucks. The only move left that I think they have to make, and I don't want to rain on your parade about the Cooper Kupp thing.
I know he has a lot of suitors. He's got like 12 people after him.
And I'm not sure the Broncos are as high on the list as very prominent reporters are even saying, at least based on the people that I've talked to in the building, that he's not really on the list. The only move that I think they're focused on in free agency right now, doesn't mean a trade's not out there in general, because we were talking about Christian McCaffrey yesterday, and I'm not saying that's happening, but as far as free agents and spots that need to be filled, is a punter with Riley Dixon leaving. But honestly, that's their last item of business before the draft in terms of
so you don't think a veteran wide receiver will be someone they try to bring in? What about bringing back Tim Patrick? He's out there.
Yeah, but that's different than Cooper
I know
Kupp.
But you know what? If they bring back Tim Patrick, I think that's then it kind of is a reflection of like maybe we made a mistake.
We messed up.
And I don't think Sean likes to admit he makes mistakes.
Well,
you know,
but
I would love Tim Patrick returning.
I mean, he had a productive season in what he was asked to do. He only, wasn't crazy. He had like 33
But
catches.
look at that roster. He doesn't need to be crazy,
he did,
right?
And they went to the NFC Championship.
And he still did a pretty great job. I do want to ask you guys one thing, because it was something I was seeing all over the world of X. People talking about some of the players that we got, while they are phenomenal players, they have dealt with injuries in the past. They maybe haven't played full healthy seasons, whether it's Evan Engram with the shoulder, Dre Greenlaw, I believe it was his Achilles.
Yeah.
There have been injuries to the players that the Broncos have acquired. However, when you look at the team Dre Greenlaw is coming from, just as an example, they all struggled with injuries. And the Broncos were one of the healthier rosters.
Oh, yeah.
2 years in a row now. 2 years in a row.
So is that kind of, is that something that you think the Broncos organization and or Sean Payton keeps in mind of, hey, I'm not really worried about those injuries because I know the process we keep bodies healthy. Like maybe there's a world where these players can kind of get a resurgence because they're around a better staff that can keep their bodies healthy.
That's not for nothing. First of all, 100% of football players get hurt.
Of course.
We all get hurt. The longer you play, you're going to rack up some injuries, especially when you play the game like Dre Greenlaw does. Okay, downhill as fast as you possibly can, trying to blow something up. Hufanga the same way. Evan Engram, I think, for me, is the one that you got to be careful with and really kind of monitor, what's going on with him. He's had a lot of soft tissue injuries.
Yeah.
Hamstrings, groins. He plays he's a quick twitch guy. He runs really fast for a guy of his size. And so he's going to have some of those hamstring things. And you don't want those to start nagging. And I think that's a concern. But for those defensive players who just play the game really aggressively, you take your chances with that.
Of course.
And so the Broncos are plugging holes in their roster with the free agents that they're signing. And then they could go into the draft and be like, all right, let's get the best players available to make us all better. But I love what they're doing, plugging holes and getting guys on defense who like to do that. and
I'm
just
very
really come
excited.
downhill and hit.
Yeah.
And so we're not going to hear about a timeline for Evan Engram coming up. I mean, he had labrum surgery in December, but what I was told by someone that I trust, without giving an exact date, the timeline for recovery is relatively standard and everything should be fine. So in my mind, that's start a training camp is what that sounds like, but without saying, hey, he's going to be ready to go first day of training camp. So don't be surprised. It won't blow anybody's mind if in the spring, if we ever even really get to see him, he's out on the side field or doing almost nothing. Because a shoulder, you can run around with a shoulder.
Yeah, I had the same injury or same surgery in an October year, and in an October year.
In an October year, he had it.
In October of a year. But I think within, like, by the time mini camps came around, I got cleared and I was doing everything. I was a receiver at the time, but mini camps aren't as physical.
I'm just doing the math. October to mini camp.
I was
December
ready.
To training camp.
Yeah. And so I imagine he'll participate in some mini camp, but probably not down on the line, putting his hands on defensive ends. But by training camp, I think he'll be ready to go.
Yeah, because I guess, right, you do the math on that. June, we might see him in that mandatory mini camp, really going through everything until they get into full team.
And the great thing about a shoulder is, and maybe we should just get in the first quarter.
I was going to say, let's just get into the first quarter because it is about the Joker, the Broncos' new addition, Evan Engram. So let's just kind of dive into. So we're thinking should be ready based on timelines.
And what I was about to say about the shoulder is, for a guy like Evan Engram, he can still run. He can still work on his routes. He can still, do everything basically except really run, jump up and lift your arm up to the sky for something. But for the most part, anything in here, and that's okay when you're rehabbing. It's all the stuff back here, up and above your head that starts to hurt with that kind of rehabilitation. But I think he'll be ready to go.
Which means you're probably keeping him out of all team and all one-on-one stuff just because of the flukiness of if somebody's, even if it's all on air, not even on air, but you're not in full pads even in minicamp, but just the idea of any kind of force back. So anything that's empty, one on none, right? Just individual work or team stuff that with no defense, we'll probably see, because he knows the catch here. He knows he can't do this or whatever. And he might even work. He was teammates with Odell Beckham. He might even be able to work on his one-handed catches the other way, but they're going to be careful with it. And so if he starts the season on PUP, which just means he had an injury before he got to the team or before the season started, don't be discouraged. It's if we find out he's not ready at the end of training camp and is going to end up on the PUP to start the regular season, that becomes a little bit more concerning. But you get him for, what is it, $23 million, 16 and a half guaranteed. It feels like a great deal if he's healthy, and you do get that Joker.
Yeah, he had like 114 catches a couple seasons ago. Very productive. Yards per catch weren't very high. I've heard people kind of criticizing that, saying he's lost a step. Perhaps to me, that's system based. I
was just going to say, maybe
throws,
in a different system.
I mean, if they're throwing him the ball at 3 yards and defense's conversion on him, what is he going to do? To me. And we Joker. It's about getting the Joker. What is it? And we've talked about what a Joker is, but I'm going to reiterate it that it's a person who plays tight end or running back who has receiver skills, and that's what he has. He has a receiver in a tight end's body, and so he's going to have linebackers and safeties covering him, and can run every route in the route tree, which not all tight ends can do. He can do a lot of double moves, and he can take the top off. He can run past guys. And maybe he lost a step from the 4.4 he ran at the combine 8 years ago, but he's still the fastest tight end out there. And he's still faster than the linebackers who are going to try to cover him, and probably most of the safeties as well. So he still has an advantage. Sean Payton's going to find a way to use him in ways that we have not seen tight ends used here. But as I mentioned to Brandon yesterday, how many Jokers are there in a deck? Do you know that?
One, right? Two.
No, there's 2 Jokers.
When you open the deck, there's 2.
So who's the second one?
Who's the second Joker? So it could be they could be targeting a running back with superior receiving skills. They could be targeting another tight end to draft, to trade up and get the Tyler Warren type of guy. We don't know, but I guarantee you they're not like, we got him. We don't need anyone else to fill that role. No.
There goes the Sean Payton voice.
Relative to other Jokers. Look, Evan Engram is 30. He's over 30 years old.
Right.
So you got to understand that, like, a guy who plays like he does, he's not like, the old, like, lumbering sort of tight end who just knows where to be and can play till he's 40. This guy plays a brand of football that is explosive, electric, and he's not going to play till he's 40. Evan Engram is not. And maybe
most players don't.
And maybe he already,
Tom Brady and LeBron
and Aaron Rodgers.
And those guys don't move.
Yeah.
And those guys don't move around like that.
Well,
Right.
LeBron's
They don't
different,
have the
but
quick
Tom Brady
twitch.
and Aaron Rodgers.
You know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
Oh,
100%.
Oh
hello.
my gosh. Who's calling you?
My friend Ashley Nicole Monk,
Ashley,
actually.
don't call her right now. She's working.
She works in sports. She must not know I'm live. It's okay. I'll
She's
call
the
her
one
back
that
later.
said she thought that the Anthony Davis trade was setting up Jimmy Butler to Dallas.
Yes. She took that back.
Yeah.
Moving on. We'll
okay,
discuss
great.
that on the next show.
Okay,
Goes off court.
Okay, so there's 2 jokers in a
So there
deck.
could be, yeah.
So we've got Evan Engram as one right
Yeah.
now.
Well, let us
Yeah.
throw a question at you
Okay.
that Nate and I kicked around yesterday, and then
Yeah.
I brought him into Kirk Bankert, the former quarterback, does a lot of film breakdown, saying that if I'm the Broncos, I'm calling the Niners right now for Christian McCaffrey. I know you can be sentimental in general. You like a good story. I was more on the side of, hey, if it's going to cost you about what, shift it for the market. It was a 2, 3, and a 4, which added up to about a 1 to get him to San Fran. So let's call it a 3, 4, and a 5, or a 2 and a 6. Would you want to see the Broncos trade for a soon-to-be 29-year-old Christian McCaffrey that has 3 years left on his deal, assuming the money, we'll just call it around $40 million. I'm not exactly sure what they keep, but would you trade for Christian McCaffrey if you're the Broncos and give up multiple picks, including a high pick as high as a second?
I don't think I would.
Yeah,
I don't think I
That's
would. And you know what? I really love Christian McCaffrey and would love to see him back home. And obviously, we know the star-studded player that he is, but we also know that he is injury prone, and he was in Carolina, and he was last year in San Francisco as well. So I think when you think about it that way, and also that just has to do with his explosive play style and the position that he's in. Running backs put their bodies through a lot. I mean, football players in general do, but as much as I would love to see Christian McCaffrey here, I don't know if it's worth as much as you'd have to give up, knowing that there is a large chance that he's not fully healthy and fully available for the team. So as hard as it is for me to say no, I would probably say no.
Yeah, the nature of his injuries last year were weird because he had these like Achilles tendonitis issues in both legs.
And those are
which
lingering.
Is like, they're lingering, and it's just like a wear and tear type of thing.
Yeah.
It's not like an acute injury where you get smashed or rolled up on and something
Right.
hurts. It's this
Over
starts
time.
to slowly hurt worse and worse and
Yes.
worse, and you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
And he thought he was coming back, and it wasn't ready, and he got so. Aside from the injury issues, I just don't see Sean Payton wanting. I see Sean Payton wanting it to be because of him and not because of the other guy.
Right.
And Christian McCaffrey, everyone knows that he's one of the best players in the NFL.
Of course.
So Sean Payton, it wouldn't be about Sean. It would be like, Christian's just that good. It's not my scheme. It's him just being that transcendent. I think Sean Payton wants to find the diamonds of the rough,
Yes.
turn him into
He
his
likes
guys.
the dark horse.
He wants Alvin
likes
Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round that's going to score 7 touchdowns in a game against the Vikings and tell you about it.
Yes.
And that was a 3rd rounder. Christian went in the top 10.
Yeah.
Heisman
I
finalist.
paid
feel
running
like
back
he
and all
likes
that.
to go like thrift shopping to find like amazing
I wanna pop
amazing
some tags.
pieces of jewelry that you can't just go walk into a store and find.
But to be fair, you have to go through his certainly the highest check marks, if you will, or the top of his trophy case. And it's littered with those guys, starting with Tony Romo, who he outbid Mike Shanahan for, if you will, to get him to come to Dallas. 2 Eastern Illinois guys trying to get an Eastern Illinois diamond in the rough. He ends up in Dallas instead of Denver. Drew Brees coming off a shoulder injury. Yes, we know Drew Brees' pedigree, but damaged goods. Nick Saban may not have revolutionized college football had the Dolphins agreed to let Brees come there, and Sean Payton may just be on TV and not have become the coach that he became. Alvin Kamara in the 3rd. Marcus Colston. He tells us about Zach Streif out of Northwestern.
Jimmy Graham.
We could just keep going on and on and on.
Michael Thomas wasn't a 1st round.
Yeah, just
and he holds the records for most receptions in a season.
Not even reclamation projects. Just Diamond. Trey Hendrickson was a 4th round pick or whatever. So Sean.
Bo Nix last year, like
Bo Nix is a great
he
example.
decided not to go trade up and try to get the guy that everyone wanted, but instead the guy that he wanted.
Well, and what's interesting too is everyone's draft board is different, and so it's nice when Des Bryant's texting about Troy Franklin and that whole story and all that. Troy Franklin had flashes, I think we can call that, but he was not Puka Nacua as a rookie or Odell Beckham or any of that. Puka Nacua is a diamond in the rough to go from BYU 5th round and be a top 5 receiver right out of the gate. That is Sean McVay finding a diamond in the rough and Les Snead. But Sean telling us, we had a 3rd round grade on Estimate. We get him in the 5th. We had a 3rd round grade on Chris Abrams-Drain. We get him in the 5th. Okay, great. Your board is still your board. Once they produce, then your grading system can be like, okay, clearly what that team's doing, whether it was the Saints for all those years or now the Broncos, is right. You telling us that on draft night's great. It gets everybody excited.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
And so to round out the Joker conversation, I think they're going to go for another guy that can do that kind of stuff, because the more you have, the better. Yeah, whether it's a tight end who's going to develop and see, and learn the system and be here for the next 10 to 12 years doing that kind of role. Obviously, Evan Engram, probably best case scenario, he's here for 4 or 5 years, right? And so developing a young tight end, really important, I think. So I think they might still draft a guy, and then a running back who can do that same stuff. I was thinking about this yesterday too. Debo is like a receiver, but he's he's like a reverse Joker, because he's like a receiver that has running back skills, and so the corners can't tackle him. They treat him like a receiver, and they get run over. So he's has these reverse Joker kind of tendencies, and it's really hard to find a guy like Debo.
Yeah.
But I think the more traditional Joker role is exactly what they just filled with Evan Engram, who can run every route in the route tree, who can run past linebackers and safeties, and can has receiver skills at a non-receiver position, and so it creates mismatches all over the field, and they got one of their guys.
Yeah. So good transition into the second quarter here.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, Evan Engram. Time talking about him and what a great grab that was for the Broncos. But let's talk about free agency for the wide receivers and the running backs that are out there that the Broncos could potentially target to kind of get Evan Engram a little bit of help, and also maybe just get some more veterans in the locker room. As much as investing in young guys is very clearly important to Sean, and we saw it work very well in their first year with his kind of new system and his new roster. Are there any? I know Cooper Kupp, you talked about wanting Cooper Kupp and how great that would be. I think we would all want Cooper Kupp. He's a phenomenal player with tons of experience.
Well, there is the hater vibe on his injuries, though. I mean, he's 31, so there are folks saying no, he's hurt, he's old, we don't want him. But like we've talked about in the last couple of weeks, I think the success he's had, the work ethic, the way he's gotten to where he's gotten, the commitment to the game, to studying the game, because it's not just enough to go out there and ball. The little stuff that you do on a daily basis translates to the big stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, by all accounts, the consummate example of that. I mean, shows up early, does extra work.
Works late. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's a great example for the young ones. And you are trying to develop a new culture here, and you do have a lot of young players, but there aren't a lot of old veterans in the locker room to kind of show that way.
Right.
Guys who have had the success he's had. Not only has he won a Super Bowl, but he's a Triple Crown winner at receiver. Cortland Sutton right now is the winner, is the old wise veteran in that room, but
hasn't seen much success in his time
here. And Cooper Kupp knows more about the position than Cortland does. I mean, and he has a bigger repertoire of routes he can run. He's a more versatile player. He can do a lot more than Cortland can.
Yeah.
And so he would be an amazing example to guys like Troy Franklin. If Troy Franklin were to get behind Cooper Kupp and do everything he did on a daily basis, every single thing, in 3 or 4 years, Troy Franklin would be, a potential Pro Bowl.
I agree. Well, let me ask you this, because you mentioned not only can these young guys learn from a veteran like, Chubb, if healthy, was a beast.
Running back. Yeah, you're talking about running back.
Yeah, that's such a big if.
It is such a big if.
You're going to have to spend more money than you want to find out if he's healthy. And I just don't think
How much would you have to spend, Brandon?
I think even if he's on a 1-year deal, it's going to be $8 to $10 million. I don't think he's signing a $3 million deal. I mean, A.J. Dillon just signed a 1-year deal to go back up Saquon Barkley and just kind of spell him, because Saquon's still your goal line back for the most part. I just don't know if it's worth it, because you're going to probably have to guarantee that deal. There's a reason Nick Chubb's out there.
Right.
And so I think if I'm Nick Chubb at this point, I'm waiting until someone goes down and all of a sudden the Ravens, Derrick Henry has something that's going to keep him out for a while. I'm doing that. If I'm Nick Chubb, I'm not signing with any team for a 1-year deal right now. I'd rather wait and hold their feet to the fire.
Yeah.
And get healthier.
Well, let me go back to the receiver conversation really quick. You mentioned like a guy like Cooper Kupp would be great for the young guys to kind of motivate them, and they can learn a lot from a receiver that's a veteran that's done this before, that has the experience and has been successful at their position. But let me ask you this, Cortland Sutton, who is the old wise man, the veteran in this locker room, do you think he's going to be willing to listen to another veteran? I mean, although he hasn't had that playoff success, or, we've seen Cortland Sutton here be a veteran for quite some time, but hasn't seen that success. Do you think that's going to be a tough thing to kind of navigate at first? Cortland Sutton having to be a learner now and not a teacher?
No, because I think they would work well together. I think Cortland would welcome that sort of experience in that room. It would take some pressure off of him. I think Cortland is sometimes put in positions that are uncomfortable for him on this team because of what you just talked about. He's the only real
it's a
veteran.
lot of pressure.
He's the only guy. He's the number one. He's the guy who's going to, on 3rd and 8, we're always looking for Cortland. And there's some routes that Cortland doesn't run as well as Cooper Kupp would, And so to have a guy like Cooper Kupp take some pressure off of Cortland seems like a very humble leader.
For sure.
And so a guy who would kind of welcome that type of dude in the locker room, a guy with skins on the wall, a guy who's had so much success, but also a humble guy himself who only wants to come in and make the room better. I think they would feed well off each other. A little Batman Robin thing.
I agree. And is it fair to assume that Cortland Sutton at this point just wants to win?
Ball games.
He wants to win some ball games and maybe potentially win a Super Bowl here in Denver. So if Cooper Kupp gets you one step, a guy like Cooper Kupp, it doesn't even have to be Cooper Kupp, but if a guy like that gets you one step closer to the end goal, which is winning a Super Bowl and making a deep playoff run with the Broncos, I'm sure Cortland Sutton is on board with that.
So last year they move on from Tim Patrick, bring in Josh Reynolds.
Yep.
And Josh Reynolds can kind of fill that leadership role just based on experience and a willing blocker, even though he's built like a stick. He was a willing blocker. That is one thing about Evan Engram, because there's some people have gone and done some film study out there. Evan Engram is more of an active participant in the run game than you'd think, and blocking downfield for his ball carriers beyond just looking at his skill set. But he's not Rob Gronkowski as a tight end or Jason Witten or somebody like that.
But you don't have to be.
You don't necessarily have to be.
No.
But going back to, Tim Patrick and Cortland worked really well together because Cortland is always the loud, hey, look at me, listen to me guy. And the receivers follow that. That's why he's voted captain every year. But Tim Patrick was also a perfect like yin and yang, because he was kind of the silent leader that guys would always talk to him, and he'd always talk to them and kind of the heart and soul of the team in that respect. So Tim Patrick makes sense, but they brought in Josh Reynolds, who was a better receiver last year, they thought, on paper than what Tim Patrick was going to be, had more upside. And then they move on from Josh because he gets hurt, he gets shot. But then as he's just off the field, as he's off the field, Devon Vele, who's also like almost 30.
Yeah, he's 26.
But he comes along. Troy Franklin's maturing. Marvin Mims is becoming a bigger part of the passing game. And so you only have so many spots. We talked about this yesterday with Trent Sherfield. He's coming in to replace Traymon Smith, but he still counts as a receiver he counts as a special teams ace, but he is a receiver. There's only so many spots in that room. And do you want to get younger? Well, do you want to get younger, or do you want that vet? I think you can make a case either way.
Well,
but I think they're already young. So don't you need a little more of that?
The only thing is, like, who's the vet? Because there's some other guys out there, but it's Amari Cooper. Do you want Amari Cooper? Probably not. Do you want Stephon Diggs? He's been productive, but he's a turd burger.
Yeah,
I was going to say, but the culture, you got to find someone also that can work well in a Sean Payton system.
I think Tyler Lockett is out there. Does Tyler Lockett present, a yin and yang to Cortland Sutton? He does. He is a route runner.
I actually think he kind of does.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
He's what you hoped Marvin Mims would be as a receiver, but Marvin is not that route runner that Tyler Lockett is with the experience. But he's kind of fallen off a little bit over the years. But is it because of the system in Seattle? He's just fallen out of favor. DK Metcalf gets all the opportunities.
Well, and JSN also cut into that for sure.
Yeah. So these are questions you got to ask about bringing in a veteran. Does it help the culture? Does it help the locker room? Does it help Cortland?
Does it
help
make us better?
Does it make us better?
Yeah.
So I would say no with Stephon Diggs, because he's a turd burglar. And then there's and then I would say no with Amari Cooper. I like Cooper Kupp, obviously, and I do like Tyler, kicking the tires on Tyler Lockett, perhaps, because he's been productive and he's a different type of receiver than they have. A guy who can run a lot of different routes and can take advantage of the middle of the field. That's what they need. And Marvin Mims could end up being that, and they might think that he's going to develop into that. But to me, so far, Marvin Mims has not shown the route running ability, the quick twitch, stop and start stuff that some of these more productive receivers have. So sounds like Cooper Kupp's got a lot of suitors.
Yeah, if I'm Cooper Kupp, let's pretend we're Cooper Kupp and we're his agent. And so he's 32. Don't know exactly what he's asking for. It sounds like he's not looking for a 1-year deal. It sounds like he wants 2 or 3 years, add some more money to kind of be all those things. Because Cooper Kupp feels like one of those guys similar to Wes Welker, although I didn't know Wes was going to go into coaching. Wes is now currently out of coaching, but has been coaching the last decade. That he feels like he'll be a coach based on just talking to people around him. In
Cooper
the way,
Kupp?
Yeah, the Cooper Kupp will be an NFL coach, even though he doesn't need the money. Just like Wes Welker doesn't need the money. Wants to be around the game, wants to share his knowledge.
Yeah, I saw this thing yesterday. He'll be like lying in bed with his wife, and he'll just like, they'll be falling asleep, and he'll go like, and he'll like quick twitch or something. She'll be like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I'm just like running routes in my mind, like going through like." He's always on it. And she's
Oh
like,
my
okay.
Gosh.
And
I would probably have a knee jerk like smack.
Good
He's
thing he
like,
wasn't in
"Sit
the good thing
Right,
he
that
was
would scare the
good thing
crap
he's not
out
an
of me.
MMA fighter or something.
Yeah.
Right,
What are you doing?
right.
Sorry, honey.
Sorry, practicing.
Yeah, sorry. He has to sleep with a full like body pillow of a person in
Yeah.
between them
Oh
just
my
to work on his
gosh.
moves. But so if I'm Cooper Kupp though, and I'm looking at the situations out there, I think where your pal Debo is in Washington makes a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I think the Chiefs losing DeAndre Hopkins with a bunch of young guys that could use beyond Travis Kelce's mentoring. The problem with Travis Kelce's mentoring, I'm not picking on Travis at all, is Travis is always on his own planet in general, knowing what I know about Travis. And now it's even magnified because of the podcast and the popularity of that.
Tay-Tay.
And the girlfriend.
And his girlfriend's Taylor Swift. He's in Happy Gilmore too, and all.
You think they're
is
gonna
he
be
really?
all of that.
fiancés soon?
Yeah.
I don't know. You tell us, fiance.
Yeah, that's more your wheelhouse.
I don't
we haven't
know.
proposed to
No,
anybody
you
yet.
guys are the ones that got on one knee.
That's true.
Do you
Yeah.
feel like he's trending in that direction based
I
on
mean,
your man intuition?
Probably. I mean,
I would be, my favorite thing is would be like, oh, why would she do it? It's like, okay, if they're in love, they want to get married. Great. It's not about fight. Like Travis Kelce has enough money. He'll be fine for life. She certainly has enough money. It's not like
she probably
to
wants to have
get richer
children.
or more. Yeah. She's in her
I
mid
would
that's the only
imagine.
thing she hasn't done.
Yeah.
Is become a
And
mom.
that is truly like a thing for women when you feel like I don't feel that pressure yet.
Biological clock ticking.
But there is a
ticking like
biological
this.
clock with women that, when you get to a certain age, you're like, you just got to be mindful of like, there's only a certain window. They call like, if you're like past 31, it's a geriatric pregnancy,
We know.
like, which is just insanity. I mean, my mom had me at like 25, 26, but then there's a 12-year age gap between me and my
Like, we gotta do
youngest.
better.
Right. They kept trying until they got the perfect kid.
Yeah.
Tatum, congrats.
He's the
But
best.
yeah, I mean, that's so, there's that element too, where she might be applying the pressure. Like,
How old is
excuse me,
Tay-Tay?
She and
29
Travis.
or something?
No,
she's in her 30s, man.
They're 136,
Gotta be.
134.
Yeah, she's like mid 30s.
Yeah,
man.
136, 130, or 135.
Let's see.
They're
How
pretty
old
close in age.
is Taylor? 35.
She's
Oh,
35.
she's
She's
in
geriatric.
geriatric.
Yeah.
She's in geriatric mode. So yeah,
Early
she's
bird
probably
special
like,
right now.
excuse me, hello.
Yeah.
You're
But going back to that, so Travis and Taylor are their own, and Travis is his own thing. So one more year of Travis at full freight. He doesn't want to go out the way he did. I don't know what it'll take for him to play better down the stretch and throughout the season, because he killed a lot of people's fantasy teams because he just wasn't consistently productive. And maybe you're so spoiled by how good he's been. But you bring in Cooper Kupp, who's all about ball all the time, and he will be a better resource, I think, Travis isn't in that room. He's in the tight end room, which is a hybrid, versus if Cooper Kupp is there. Again, I don't know what their financial situation is. I know the Chiefs don't have a lot of money. They just gave Nick Bolton money. They let Joe Tooney go to the Bears. They brought in a tackle. They got the highest paid center in the league in Creed Humphrey, who's awesome. They pay Chris Jones, highest paid defensive lineman, obviously the Mahomes. But if I'm Cooper Kupp, I'm looking hard at the Chiefs, knowing that you'll be right in that mix. Maybe even a team like the Ravens. I don't know where their financial situation is. They just brought in D-Hop. But I'm looking at teams that are knocking on the playoff door.
To the Ravens?
I'm just picking teams where if I'm Cooper,
it seems too crowded. It seems too crowded there.
Maybe so. If the Eagles move on from A.J. Brown, if he ends up getting traded between now and the draft, like Cooper
you
Kupp,
think he will?
He said he's open to it.
I just look at the Broncos as a real promising destination for someone, a real team on the rise.
What about the Raiders with Tom Brady calling, and they've got a little more money to give him? They've obviously paid
Carroll.
I actually
Smith.
can see Cooper Kupp as a Raider.
And I see him responding well to Pete Carroll and his gum chewing and his back slapping and
no state income tax. You go from paying
Does
the
he
highest.
do that as well?
Come on, guys.
But I mean, you go from paying the highest taxes in the country in
gosh.
California to now paying no state income tax in Nevada.
These are
Your
things
money's
that they
gonna just
probably
go
think about.
farther.
Yeah,
They'll still be rich regardless, right?
of course.
So I think it's more about the culture and the team and your wife. Where does she want to move to? Because that matters too, right? Even though he's quick twitching in
You
the
should
bed.
always consider the wife.
Yeah.
Happy wife, happy life.
And
Is
Is that true, fellas?
It is true.
Okay. So there you go.
You'll find out. Well, Alex will find out.
Yeah.
But
I do have a little bit of a funny thing that I'm going to say before we get into halftime here. You guys, when I posted my engagement,
yeah.
which I would have posted some stuff on my stories on Friday, and then I made the formal announcement after we got the photos, which would have been maybe Monday. I lost 700 followers on Instagram. There were 700 people that thought they maybe had a chance. And then when they saw that I was off the market, it was like, done.
How many of them thought?
Unfollow.
How many of them thought? You know what? she had a chance with me and she blew it, so I'm done.
If I've
Like, they
never
made it
met
about
you
you.
before and you don't even have your own face as your profile picture and it's Luka Doncic, like what makes you think that there was ever a
How do you know it
world?
wasn't Luca?
Yeah, Luca unfollowed
Well,
you?
Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe
Okay.
it's this. Maybe it's that.
It's just so funny to
It's
me.
not that they thought they had a chance with you, Liv. It's just that they don't want to see you moving on and being happy. Like they want to
That's
just
so
like
weird.
maintain this illusion like that you are just like, I don't know, single and ready to mingle. Even if they know they'll never meet you, to see you like happy with another dude, it's hard for them to look at that. And so
But does that not sound cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs?
Are we gonna play that game with society?
I'm just saying, like,
Yeah,
we don't need
maybe
to
we can
because
get
I
one of
know
these
there's some
guys
kooks
to
out there.
maybe we can get, and I'm sure someone watching right now was one of those dudes who unfollowed you, and so they can comment as to why you unfollowed her.
Like at the end of the day, like I will still post this, like I'll still post the same content.
But they'll
what people
know.
don't know
They'll
is
know.
Alex has been behind the scenes ever
Ever
since that guy said BK is
Zelensky, but BK looks like Zelensky.
real.
Especially if I'm wearing black
Vladimir.
and didn't shave.
Yeah.
Well, you shaved recently.
Yeah, I'm saying so if I go about a week, which is usually what I do,
And then you wear that all
and I wear
black.
it all black. I let Nate wear all black today so he can go meet with.
Let him.
Yeah, thank you.
with
Gave him
President Trump.
Thank you.
permission.
He's a Johnny
No,
Cash
I just
of our,
I just think it's funny because I don't think people realize like behind the scenes for the last like year and a half, I've had this relationship and my content has still been enjoyable to people.
But the mystery of, oh, she doesn't have a ring, she must be single. Thus, if I ran into her at a bar, at a game, at some
I guess
event,
so. It does lose maybe
And-
the story, the plot.
yeah,
The plot's
it's-
less entertaining for people.
Because the
I'm
internet
sure.
is a fantasy world. It's,
Yeah.
it's
No,
make,
it is,
It's
definitely.
make believe, and people have their own,
I wait
fantasies
until-
that they ascribe to the people that they see on the internet.
Yeah, no, it's true.
I wait until people get engaged, then I start following them.
Yeah, so you can break it up. Yeah, smart.
Like, I like a challenge.
Well, for those of you that are still sticking around and watching all of the Guerrilla Sports content, because that's literally my whole page.
Yeah.
So if you're still sticking around, we love you over here.
I'll
Speaking
say,
of,
I'll say this though, real quickly. When I was single,
yeah,
if I was talking to a young lady and she had a ring, obviously that went without, I wasn't expecting it to go anywhere.
What?
But even if she said, "Oh, my boyfriend," this, I'm like, "All right, cool," and I just moved because I just didn't want to deal with whether it was fake boyfriend, real boyfriend. I just didn't want to even deal
of
with.
course, that's
Yeah, I
very
think the single
respectable
people-
of
I
you.
know. I was
Okay.
like,
So you
we
didn't
got
try
so
to
much
break
time
up
today.
relationships. Good for you, Brandon.
I ain't never been to jail.
Wow.
Oh my god.
I take
Well,
care of my kids.
Speaking
so-
of breaking up
well, Chris Rock-
relationships, speaking of
Low
breaking up
expectation
relationships, it
happens.
feels
Oh,
like Aaron Rodgers did a little bit of that in
Yeah.
halftime. And we're talking about A-Rod, Aaron
Yeah.
Rodgers. There's actually two A-Rods. if
There
you
are.
really
There's the
wanna
first A-Rod who was
Right.
at the basketball game last night because
Yeah,
he
saw that.
may or may not own the Timberwolves at some point, but
Oh,
he was
there.
there again.
Saw that.
Yeah, I think he's going to
But
Denver.
Aaron Rodgers is the A-Rod we're referring to in this moment right now, who looked like he was just having a cozy moment on the beach. He had the ear. First of all,
He's such an enigma.
he is such an enigma. But first of all, you know what immediately caught my eye in that picture?
What's with your hat?
He's still using corded headphones.
No, there are a lot of people who are going back to that because
They
Which
think-
you know what, is fine. But I actually did a workout a couple weeks ago where I did one.
It's more Nike. Jam.
Every time I would
They
move
fall
my
out,
arm,
yeah.
I would pull them, and then I was yanking my ears. And
no,
I was
you got to
like,
put it
"This
down.
is
You got to
horrible."
put it down your shirt and then.
I know for
attach
women,
it.
that's just that feels a little more like
Yeah.
Invasive.
complicated, a little invasive.
Yeah.
But
But I will say that there's like a school of thought that believes that the Bluetooth things are sending like
signals to our
electromagnetic
brains.
through your brain because they connect to each other. They're in your ears, the soft tissue. They're going through your brain,
That's actually fair.
and it's like,
And
oh,
it would be Aaron Rodgers that thinks about these sorts of things and is like very aware of what his brain is digesting and all that. So, okay, he's wrapped up in a little cozy blankie,
yeah,
barefoot,
on the beach,
toes
looking
in the
out.
sand.
Who hasn't been there, looking out
Come
on the
on.
majesty of the ocean
Of course.
and wondering what is my fate in this world?
God, point me in the direction. Do you think maybe a Miami dolphin, a dolphin jumped out of the water? So God was telling him Miami is
You just turn it down.
No one else can hear it.
so maybe that's what it was. Maybe he was sitting there and he saw a dolphin jump out of the water and he said, called his agent and said,
Maybe
call Miami.
a narwhal.
What team would that be?
The Steelers.
So
Why would you say call Miami? They got Tua and Zach Wilson. There's no room for.
I'm
Aaron
just
Rodgers.
saying,
So
if
in
he's looking in
Enigma-
the water, what's the sign?
in Enigma, he
Yes.
had this moment, and it was part of the sizzle for the docuseries.
Mhm.
And he was kind of coming down off the ayahuasca, and he was talking about how he, like that a butterfly was like once a caterpillar. And then the moment that the caterpillar turns into a butterfly and he's flying around for the first time, he's like, oh my God, this is my fucking life now. I get to fly around like this.
I think butterflies are that self-aware.
That's what it's so ridiculous.
I don't think Aaron Rodgers is that self-aware.
Yeah, like,
I mean, goodness sake, what kind of a drug is this?
Well, it allows you to appreciate nature and your spot in the world and whatever it is. And he was having this epiphany that made him realize that transformations can be a great thing or whatever it is. And maybe, your life is a caterpillar. I don't fucking know. What is he talking about? It was manufactured for Netflix. But what I'm saying is that, like, who knows what was going on in his mind? And was that the photographer, like, his buddy? That's what I want to know. Was it like staged and like, okay, wait, I'm going to look out on the ocean. Okay, now do it. Probably not.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to know with Aaron, right?
I'll say this though. As much of a turd he is as he's been sometimes here and there, he should play as long as he wants to fucking play. And as long as someone will give him the opportunity to play. And he would play better. He wasn't the worst quarterback in the league last year.
Oh, there he is.
He was. There he is. Yeah.
He's actually joining the show instead of BK. There you go.
Yeah.
We're going to just chat like this.
Fine.
Look at Aaron.
We're both enigmas.
He's just, it looks very poetic, this photo.
Yeah.
I know this. People from Northern California are weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely. So what do you think if we were to take, what is the drug?
Ayahuasca.
If we were to take that right now, okay. If we were to take that right now, and our goal at the end of it was to picture where we see Aaron Rodgers going, where does your mind?
And these are the teams that are interested: Giants, Vikings, Steelers are at the top of the list. I think Titans are below that. Raiders, I think, are now off the table with the Geno thing. Seattle signing Sam Darnold. So there's only a few teams that really make sense.
I don't see Mike Tomlin and Aaron Rodgers getting along.
Here's why I do think they get along. Because
why not?
For all of I guess you tell us why, and then I'll tell you.
Because I think there's a little bit of an Aaron Rodgers has a little bit of that diva mentality where he has been used to having with Hackett a lot of freedom and a lot of, he kind of calls the shots when things don't go the way that he wants them to go. He has a little bit more control than other players. And let's be real. Most players have, there's probably a lot of players that have more control than we realize, but I don't know. I think Mike Tomlin runs a pretty tight ship and he knows what he wants. And it's two people. It would be like 2 point guards that are ball hogs. Like that's kind of how I see that playing out is Aaron Rodgers knows what he wants, but Mike Tomlin knows what he wants. And I just don't see them being compatible.
Well, Russell kind of was a diva, right? And went there and was able to sort of fall into Mike
But
Tomlin's...
different because I actually think Russell is like a softie. I think all of that is showcase. I think
Russell's
all of that is for the
pleaser.
cameras. I think when it comes down to it, if someone looked him in the eyes and said, we're not doing that, he'd be like, okay. I really do. Like, I don't think Russ is as right. I don't think Russ is as tough as I think he does all of that, in my opinion, like for the show of it. He likes being extravagant and having people chat about him, but I don't think he's in a front office going, I need this done. I don't know. I think that's where they're probably a little different.
And you think Aaron, if he went to Pittsburgh, would do that stuff?
I think he's done it everywhere.
But I think, look at the situation. In Green Bay, he complained that he was never getting enough help. And then I think their thought was, you're the best thrower of the football we've ever seen until Patrick Mahomes has come along. So we don't need to draft first-round receivers.
I know Patrick Mahomes is a better thrower of football than Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron still might be I enjoy
pure passer.
Yeah, I enjoy watching Mahomes play more.
Yeah,
but Aaron
Rodgers
playing
against the Broncos defense.
Mahomes is probably the third best quarterback of all time.
This isn't apples to apples. Steph Curry is the best shooter to walk the planet. Everybody will say that. But I don't like watching him shoot more than I liked watching Ray Allen shoot. Reggie Miller's a great shooter, but his hands would cross. Ray Allen looks like, if you were going to teach someone exactly, like, you're not going to teach him to shoot the way Steph shoots. It's awesome. And Caitlin Clark kind of shoots exactly like that. But Ray Allen is how you would want to teach every shooter how to shoot. And so Aaron Rodgers, how you really want to teach every thrower, because he doesn't have the same baseball background that Mahomes does. But when it comes to throwing a football, his mechanics and just the effortlessness with which the ball gets there and velocity and all that. But he would complain at Green Bay he never had enough help. They still let him do his thing, go on McAfee and all that. He gets to New York, where Saleh, good defensive coach, but bad ownership. And so that's always going to be a problem. And Woody Johnson's involvement, his kids are denying trades because of Madden. So he can't get Jerry Jeudy because his Madden rating's too low and this and that. He wants Devontae Adams. They give him Devontae Adams. Hackett loses his. So the Jets is dysfunctional all the way around. If you were to go to Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell, a really good offensive coach. If you were to go to Pittsburgh, it would be for two reasons. Because Mike T knows that for all of the Aaron Rodgers enigma stuff and his weekly McAfee appearance, which I bet he'd still let him do, that Aaron Rodgers during the season is still all about ball. And he's still, because 15 years in Green Bay, you had nothing to do but football.
Right.
So on Tuesdays, he's still in the building all day or most of the day. And he's still that guy. And you saw him make enough plays last year. And because Mike T overruled Arthur Smith as they were off to a 5-0 start with Justin Fields, Justin wasn't really throwing the ball particularly well. And they went with Russell Wilson. That was Mike T's call. Arthur wasn't in a hurry to do it. I know this for a fact, but they made it work, and then it didn't work at the end. Now you have DK Metcalf and George Pickens, presumably fighting over number 14. I'll take DK. But so you don't need other receivers. You're losing Najee Harris, but they like the Warren kid. There's enough running backs in this draft. Solid O-line, really good defense with one of the best 5 defensive players in the league. And Cam Hayward still in the middle. You bring in Aaron Rodgers, and the football part, I think, is enough that Mike T's like, I don't care if he's on McAfee every Tuesday. We're worrying about the next week because I know he's been in the office all day, and he's going to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday be good in practice, and on Sundays give us a chance that we haven't had since Big Ben was young and healthy.
But what if he plays Sunday and they don't have a good? What if he's not playing to the level that he's?
Well, the Pittsburgh
used to play
Steelers
at?
quarterbacks haven't played well in a long time, and still they find a way to win, which is because it's a credit to Mike Tomlin and the system.
Of course.
So there's a handful of coaches in the NFL who just know how to win. Their system works every freaking year.
Mike Tomlin's one of them.
Mike Tomlin is
sure.
one of them.
Yeah.
So Aaron would be able to go there and fall into that. And I think that like the level of turd that Mike Tomlin has dealt with the Antonio Browns,
That's fair.
and the Le'Veon.
Yeah.
Aaron's not quite.
He's prepped for this.
Aaron's not going to be like Instagram living from the locker room after a win and doing stuff like that.
Right.
He may have some opinions, but I think he's also probably learned a lot the last couple of years, and going into New York thinking everything was going to work and he could just touch everything and it would turn to gold, and it didn't. It turned to poo-poo. I think that might have humbled him a little bit to this next approach. Like he's like,
so.
all right, if I'm going to do this, I got one more chance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have to humble myself a little bit, go in there and use the skills I have and the knowledge I have, but not try to tip the scales with my personality or talk too much, but just get the wins, because this is affecting his legacy a little bit.
It totally is.
And if he goes there and takes a dump in his helmet and puts it on and just runs down his face, and you get up close to him just with like, then that's going to be the lasting
disgusting.
memory.
Let me ask you a question. By all accounts, did Bo Nix have a good year?
Yeah.
Statistically?
Yeah.
37-75. Really good rookie year. That hit that over. We should have bet it. They took it off the board. Stupid books when it was like 2,700. 29 touchdowns. You'll take that. 12 INTs. He's a rookie. Aaron Rodgers last year, 3,897 yards. So 3 shy of 3,900. That's more yards than Bo. 28 touchdowns, 1 less. 11 INTs. That's 1 less.
I would hope so. He's Aaron
Yeah,
Rodgers.
exactly. He's
But I
a
understand.
three-time
For God's
MVP,
sake.
four-time
The point is,
MVP.
he's Aaron Rodgers. Russell Wilson was 16-5 and 2,400 yards. I know he didn't start those first 5 games. So up that to 21 touchdowns. Aaron Rodgers is still better than Russell Wilson right now. And with all that around him and Mike Tomlin minimizing mistakes, that's the best thing the Steelers have done, is they don't beat themselves very often. So that's why with Mason Rudolph, with Kenny Pickett, with guys like that, and with the Justin Fields, Russell Wilson hybrid, they can get to the playoffs. You put Aaron Rodgers in there and everything's going well, and it has the chance to, then you can actually make some noise in the playoffs.
Of course.
Especially if you're healthy. And he's now 2 years
Also,
removed from the Achilles tear.
Playing Joe Burrow twice in a season, playing Lamar twice, right, in a season, and then playing
Yeah, I don't think
Kenny
the humbling.
Pickett and the Browns.
Kenny Pickett,
If Aaron Rodgers goes to the Steelers, I don't think his humbling chapter is over. I mean, I think.
You think he's going to continue to get humbled?
I mean, you just said Joe Burrow, Lamar.
Yeah,
those
yeah.
are teams he has to face more than once.
Yeah.
And let's be real, we
Did the
didn't
Bengals
see
get
the
better on
best
defense?
out of Aaron Rodgers last season. We just didn't. And here's the difference between, okay, yeah, he may have had relatively good numbers by all accounts when you're comparing him to players that we also believe had a good season. But one, he's Aaron Rodgers, and also he moves and acts and speaks sometimes like he had a far better season than he actually did.
Mm-hmm.
It's the attitude accompanied with
Yeah.
the season that I think irritates me. And he's also it feels like there's always something when it comes to Aaron Rodgers, even when he is pooping his pants in the middle of the field, even when the season is not going well and it's total flop, we're still finding ways to talk about Aaron Rodgers way too often. And it's like, I don't want to talk about this person. Like, there's always something with him. That's what irritates me about Rodgers. It's like, yes, I believe he is all about ball from training camp and beyond. I mean, he never checks out of it, but then then cut out the other hoopla. It's kind of the same way I'm starting to feel about Travis Kelce, where there's all these extra things that it's like, it's going to start getting to the point where I don't even think about Aaron Rodgers on a Sunday playing football. I think about him as Pat McAfee's BFF buddy co-host. It's like, I see more of that than I do of good football last season.
I think he wants to rewrite that narrative too. I don't think he wants
the
footnote of his career to be like, fell off the map. And yeah, he was on McAfee every week looking, ridiculous. He probably doesn't have that level of awareness. And then the Enigma thing didn't have the happy ending. So maybe Enigma Part 2, Steel City.
He's trying to get the happy ending. He's trying to walk off into the sunset.
Which I want that for him.
But the interesting thing about Aaron Rodgers, I know we're going on and on about Aaron, but that's fine. Wow, all these devices just ringing out.
Halftime. It's like a Super Bowl halftime here.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, guys. Wow.
But the thing that I found very interesting about Enigma, the docuseries on Netflix about Aaron Rodgers, the 3-episode thing, was he admitted that, his whole life, his goal was to become a Super Bowl champion. And Joe Montana was his idol. Aaron Rodgers was underestimated, disrespected, went to JC, was drafted at the end of the first round when he thought he should have been at the first, had to sit behind Brett Favre for a while. No one ever believed in him. No one believed that he could do it. But then he did it. He became an MVP and he became a Super Bowl champion. And as the confetti was pouring down, he was holding the trophy in his hand and he thought, this is it. What now?
Mm-hmm.
There was a feeling of that hole still being in his heart. And I think that's what the ayahuasca is about, all the searching, all the politics that he wades in. He's trying to fill something that, he cannot fill up. But to me, it would be a red flag that you won it once and that wasn't a big, that didn't scratch the itch. He wasn't, because of these maniacs like Brady and some of these, they win it once and they want to start working out the next day to win it again.
Mm-hmm.
But Aaron won it and he was like, no big deal. That didn't feel how I thought it was going to feel. Then the searching began. Then the purpose and the meaning of life and all that began outside of football. And so how bad does he actually want it?
Mm-hmm.
How bad does he actually want to be champion? Or is it about his own legacy, his own numbers? So that would be the concern of mine.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, you talk about crazy people. I mentioned Nick Saban earlier. There's those stories about Nick Saban after winning a championship or at halftime in the middle of the national championship, like calling recruits like, hey, are you watching this?
Yeah. This could be you.
And so I think that's probably speaks to more just people's personality traits. And are you glass half full or glass half empty?
Right.
With kind of everything. Are you satisfied with where things are, or have you achieved these goals? And I understand most people are driven to do more. Certainly very successful people can be. But when it's all about winning, Tom Brady does want to win more. Peyton Manning, all the work was just to try to win more. But they enjoyed the work as much as anything else.
Well, the sacrifices that you make to be the GOAT and the greatest are pretty severe. And for Aaron Rodgers, even more so. You kind of wrote off his own family, his religion, the mainstream media. He hasn't had no real meaningful relationships. He's never been. So he's alone. He's just by himself. And all the sacrifices he's made to be so great have made him a loner.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you're by yourself and then you achieve the goal and all the people you left behind to do it, you don't talk to your family anymore. You don't talk to anybody anymore. And here you are holding the trophy. Well, who the fuck do you share it with?
Right.
What makes it special when you just had to do it all by yourself?
I think that's a tough lesson to learn.
It is.
That as much as you love football and you're really stinking great at it, and that's, your purpose in your brain on your life and what you need to prioritize, it doesn't really hit the same when you have nobody to share it with.
The lonely goat. The lonely goat.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Let's move on to third quarter. Third quarter. The Broncos defensive acquisitions. The defense already had a pretty stellar season last year. It kind of, the defense carried this Broncos team in a lot of ways, although the offense did have some promise. I do think the defense copped out. Is that a good way to say?
No, copped out is not the right word. Bailed out?
Bailed out.
Yeah.
That's what I meant.
Copped out mean they're like, I'm out.
Oh, yeah,
that's
no,
what,
they didn't do that. They did
what,
actually the opposite of that.
That's what our guy from the Niners, whose name I can't remember, who we probably will forget at some point, just left in the middle of the game. That's copy.
Oh, yeah, the safety.
I can't
remember.
The linebacker.
The linebacker who was asked to go in for Dre Greenlaw.
Yep.
Yeah.
So bailed out our offense quite a few times this season because I think our defense was by far the most consistent over the course of this season and did a lot of great things, but looks like they're getting even better, which I didn't know or think was possible. I think the fear last season was, are they going to keep Vance Joseph?
Yeah.
He's gonna be
And he's
a
so
hot
happy
commodity.
right now. Yeah.
Oh, but come on. Now you gotta stay. You gotta stick around for a couple more seasons, Vance. I'm just saying, because this defense is looking pretty sturdy, pretty strong,
Pretty sturdy.
pretty legit.
They've got a chance. And it's weird to sit here now and project what jobs will be open next year.
Yeah.
But Vance, I know, was a finalist for the Jets job. He met with the Raiders. He has a good relationship with Mark Davis, but Tom Brady and John Spytek, obviously they went in a different direction, and you can't fault them for taking Pete Carroll. I'm surprised that he didn't end up even talking with the Saints, with Mickey Loomis being one of Sean's best friends. And if Vance Joseph gets a head coaching job, for all these coaches he lost, he didn't lose a minority coach, the coach who is a minority, which comes with 2 third-round picks. So if he helps Vance Joseph get, and I say helps, but if he's out there campaigning for his defensive coordinator, 2 third-round picks are coming in the next draft. So now he has to wait a year for that. But if Vance's defense is healthy and plays the way we think they can, that's obviously always a big if, but especially with the 2 acquisitions, Vance Joseph will jump to the very top of the list of defensive coordinators. You know, it was him, Brian Flores, it was Aaron Glenn. AG obviously gets the job. If I'm not mistaken, the other 6 coaches are all offensive coaches, right? Liam Cohen, Brian Schottenheimer. If we go across the board, Pete, I guess, so 5 of the 6. Ben Johnson, offensive coaches, and Vrabel's Vrabel. So, but a bunch of offensive coaches this year.
But a lot changes in a year, and we don't.
For sure.
You know, that's something that's down the line. I think what we can feel good about. Vance Joseph likes to pressure the quarterback. He likes guys to come downhill and attack, and he's got a couple guys to do that now. Dre Greenlaw and Talanoa Hufanga, who is a big hitter, and he plays a reckless style of football. You know, Budda Baker was a safety, is a safety that Vance had in Arizona, and he really liked to move him around a lot and blitz with him, and
like a joker on defense.
Yeah, he's in the backfield a lot, and so he likes to have guys that play like that. And I'm not saying Hufanga is a Budda Baker type, but he likes to put pressure packages, and you even saw PJ Locke making plays in the backfield last year, and so that's something that Hufanga is going to be doing. You're going to see him in the backfield a lot, coming after the quarterback, and to me, as crazy as it sounds, the only hole that you have on this defense now is at cornerback. And I'm not saying that Riley Moss isn't a good enough player to play there. I just think that is now your weak link, that he's probably the least proven player on that defense now. And so he's going to be the most attacked on that defense. He doesn't have a ton of experience, and he was a little bit hurt. He's playing opposite the defensive player of the year, Pastor Tan. So I would not be surprised if the Broncos draft a corner pretty high. Or at least, wouldn't you agree, Brandon?
100%.
Because it's also like maybe Riley still starts, but you're going to need depth at that position too.
Yeah. Are there any that you've got your eyes on?
There's the kid out of Texas is a good player. The kid out of Michigan is a good player. There's a couple with first-round grades. There's one more that I'm drawing a blank on. I really get into my draft stuff after free agency. Like after this week, I'll start to look ahead to the draft. I know I was at the combine, but for me, that's more about
one step at a time.
But that's more about information gathering and then the CU guys that were there. And but as they start to go through pro days, the Big 12's having their pro day next week. CU is having theirs in early April, and that's when Travis and Shador will work out to whatever degree they're going to work out. They're going to be in Dallas, I think, as a favorite of the league, but I don't think they'll be there because Jimmy Horn's going to be there and Will Shepard's going to be there, and those guys will be there to be supportive and maybe talk to teams that if they need to, because it gives them one more chance without having to be all secretive and let's go meet for a private workout with the Titans or whatever. But there are some corners in the draft at 20, and that's the thing is we keep talking about tight end and running back, and there's lots of really good running backs throughout the draft. And there's a couple of really good tight ends, especially at the top, and a couple that you like later on. But if there's a corner there at 20, I see a world where they have no problem moving Riley Moss inside and having him battle with Jaquan McMillan, because I don't know if they love the second year they got from Jaquan starting last year. I think he had a better first year, and we saw that. I mean, he was graded higher and made more plays.
Although he did have that pick 6. Was it against Cleveland?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there were 2 that game, were there not? Well, there was 2
Nick Benitez was a fumble recovery.
Yeah. Okay. I was going to say
he recovered the fumble out of the air.
Yeah. There was a really great defense our defense had a really great showing against Cleveland. I just remember.
But you're right. Corners that's going to always be opposite of PS2 is going, just like when you played with Champ, and whether it was Darren Williams, you go down the list. Those guys were getting picked on. Carl
Yeah.
Pema. We could just keep listing guys that played opposite of Champ, go all the way through. They were getting picked on or getting attacked or targeted. But with Alex Singleton back, that'll allow them to be even more stable. Cody Barton played really well, but now Vance will let Alex call the defense, and Dre Greenlaw's going to get to go crazy like he has. I want to ask you though, as someone who is plugged into the Niners locker room certainly better than we are. Like, we know people with the organization, but we don't know a player the way you know Debo. Have you had any interaction with him about those two guys coming here and asked him what he thinks of Greenlaw and Hufanga? Because I'd love whatever you're allowed to share. I imagine it's probably pretty complimentary because those dudes are dogs.
Yeah, I the only thing I responded to Debo's story when he posted Dre Greenlaw. I think he posted like the graphic that showed that Dre Greenlaw was getting traded to the Broncos.
Well, signing.
And signing. And I responded and said, like, I think I sent like the eyeball emoji and I said like, uh-oh. And he just sent like, man, like you could tell it was like a one. And then I responded and said, the Broncos are going to be tough. Like, this is a good, but Debo already knew that. There was a clip of him talking at the Super Bowl when I asked him who's a sleeper team for this upcoming season. He said Denver. So this is just, I think, more, and Debo really wasn't against the idea of coming here either. So part of that man could also be like, dang, this is going to be a tough team. It would have been fun to play in Denver, but I think he's also very excited about Washington, and you probably can't take him off of the high he's riding right now. Him and I are actually going to have a show tomorrow to talk about his thoughts and feelings. So while I'm live, I will ask him, hey, my Denver Broncos got really stinking good. What are your thoughts on these two guys coming on over? So I'll get his live reaction thoughts, and we can maybe clip that and then clip some of this and put it together. And
boom.
Maybe I'll try to get him as well. He's pretty busy right now. It was hard enough to get the show for tomorrow, but then I'll see if he's got some time for us here on Off Field, and we can ask his thoughts directly, how he feels about the Broncos kind of leveling up, because he already did give the Broncos credit in New Orleans.
That's before they made these moves.
Before they made these moves. So
the fact that Evan Engram chose the Broncos over the Chargers, he went and visited the Chargers and apparently got a similar deal offered to him. And
speaks
chose
volumes of the culture here.
It does. And so for people who think, these guys want to go to a contender, they're viewing the Broncos as a contender. The Chiefs got their asses kicked in the Super Bowl, and at some point they're gonna fall off. We were all hoping it happened the last several years. It hasn't yet, but is next year the year the Chiefs finally fall off, right?
See what my watch says?
Yeah.
It's time.
Oh, yep, I see that.
Chiefs fall off.
Mine's Mickey Mouse.
Oh, yeah. We gotta
play with the storyline.
Oh, Mickey Mouse.
His is Mickey Mouse. Mine says it's time for the Chiefs fall off.
Exactly.
That's what the time is.
I can't read French.
It's going to happen eventually. And so folks want to come here. It's a great place to live anyway.
Great place to raise a family.
Great place to raise a family. You got the richest owners in the league. They're redoing the entire facility. They're going to have everything state of the art. They're going to build a new stadium at some point. They don't spare a penny to make this a great experience for the players. The players respond to that and know that. The Broncos, not just with the current ownership, a long storied history of excellence, multiple Super Bowl victories, Hall of Fame players. This is one of the crown jewels of this league, and the fact that the Broncos are back to relevancy means guys are going to want to come here.
Well, and look at how many former Broncos still stick around
Denver
and still live here and raise their kids here and speak highly of the Broncos even while they're in another uniform. I mean, it does speak volumes of the culture that is here, but also I think the long-term success and respect that the Broncos have earned over time. I mean, it's crazy to think that in that 10-year period where it felt like, oh my gosh, we are just the worst. This is just so painful. You very quickly forgot that this has been a very successful franchise, and
Peyton Manning.
We just had a little rough period.
No, I don't know if we forgot. I think it's more that you knew how good they've been, and it made it hurt.
It was
more.
a very big letdown.
What they're dealing with in Detroit right now is new to them. The Vikings have had good teams, but they haven't ever won a Super Bowl. The Browns have half a century worth of pain because the Broncos were so good and then dropped up. The Niners dealt with that before Kyle Shanahan came in, and they were going through between Jim Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan. It's Tom Sula and it's whoever else, and Trent Baalke running that team into the ground. And so that's because you know what it's felt like. That's what makes it hurt even more.
Yeah,
of course.
But there's a very simple equation here. I know you're about to start talking about Peyton Manning, and that's kind of
he lives here. He doesn't live in Indy.
He could live anywhere he wanted. He could live in New Orleans. His wife's from Tennessee. They've got a place in South Florida. He could live anywhere. He chooses to live here, and we all know why. But Peyton Manning is, you go from Peyton Manning, you can draw a straight line. Why are the Broncos a destination again? For everything that's great about the Penners, the Walton Penner ownership group, George getting it right in the draft a bunch, Sean Payton's legacy and pedigree. They've got their quarterback. And once you have your quarterback, it just changes the way you talk about filling in the holes. The Bengals are trying to figure out how to pay all their guys, but they've got Joe Burrow. So they know that as long as they have Joe Burrow, they're going to be there versus Tennessee, who has a
You
top
always
pick,
have a chance when you have a good
the
quarterback.
Giants,
right?
the Jets, the Steelers.
Yeah.
We could just go down that list. The Cowboys paying Dak $60 million, but they have their quarter regardless.
Well, that really
when you've got the
butt,
quarterback, same with the Chiefs, and theirs is the best. But when you've got the quarterback, it makes everything else so much easier. And when you don't, I don't care how good your team is, you can only get so far.
Yeah, for sure. Well, before we get into the draft really quick, I just want a quick answer from both of you on this. We're about to hop into the fourth. Possible for BK.
Yeah.
Before we hop into the fourth quarter here, do you believe, because I feel like
Bo Leaf?
the overwhelming, Bo Leaf. I feel like the overwhelming answer will be the same for all of us, and it's an astounding blank, what I think it's going to be.
An astounding
Do you
blank.
think, an astounding blank, do you think that Sean Payton will win a Super Bowl as the coach of the Denver Broncos?
I do.
I do too.
I do 3.
What? That might be his shortest answer he's ever given. And on that note, we're moving on.
Yeah, let's move on. Although the chances are no.
Yeah,
But we believe, we believe that he will.
I believe it.
But there are 31 other teams out there trying just as hard to make it happen
well-
every year. So, but Sean Payton has done wonders in these first couple of years. So
And
I'm making this
that's-
answer a lot longer than you asked.
That's fine. You have permission. He doesn't.
I just
Oh,
say
yeah,
ditto.
Good.
Ditto.
Good.
Okay, fourth quarter. We're going to wrap things up with this. And then we've got a 2-minute warning, a little special edition 2-minute warning here. The draft. Any overwhelming thoughts that you guys have? Or, I mean, I think we know where the Broncos specifically, we can speak on that for a second, where they specifically need to keep their eyes focused. But any like curveballs you think are going to be thrown around? I mean, I know your thoughts on Shadur. He's better off to not go super early because
We're talking draft thoughts, not Broncos draft thoughts, just general draft thoughts.
I mean, however you want to. However,
No, my Broncos draft thoughts are limited.
Yeah, my Broncos draft thoughts are simply that, the free agency is plugging the holes and filling them with veterans who you know what their skill set are and you know what you want to add to your team. Whereas the draft is a little bit more of a crapshoot. You don't know how these guys are going to play in the NFL. And so to me, you can take some chances and get some guys that you just think are awesome football players.
Yeah.
Best player available. And this is different. Some people have different philosophies. Some people think you continue to do what you're doing in free agency. You plug holes. If you need a strong safety, you go out and find the best strong safety. But there's another philosophy that says, like, we create our draft board, and whoever's highest on that board when our pick comes up, we're going to take that guy because we love the cut of his jib. He's a badass. We want him on our team because whatever he does on a daily basis raises the level of everyone else around him.
Yeah.
We want to fill this team with as good of football players as possible, knowing that they're going to end up winning games for us. And I think that's what this draft is going to be for the Broncos. I don't think they have a ton of holes. Now, tight end, running back is the biggest hole. I think they'll probably draft 2 guys, right? But tight end, they just signed Evan Engram. I still think they'll draft a guy and try to develop him. But then you can and you do have pretty good defensive backs. And you do have a good corner. But if you love a guy and you have the opportunity to get him. And maybe they'll get an edge rusher who they think is a badass, or a defensive lineman who they think is a badass dude, or maybe even a receiver. That would be a surprise to me. But at the same time, you have the opportunity to do that because you've built up your roster and you've plugged a lot of holes in it. So that'll be interesting. The Shadur stuff, if he goes to Tennessee, if he goes to Cleveland, if he goes to one of those crappy organizations, I say good luck, Shadur, because you're fighting the tide there. And he thinks he needs to change the culture somewhere. To me, the best destination for him is somewhere where he doesn't have to change
let
the culture.
the culture change you a little.
Pittsburgh, right? If he were to
go.
get drafted to the Steelers, if he were to fall that far and then play behind Aaron Rodgers for 2 years and learn, he could end up having an incredible career
he'd be
there.
Great in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Well, you guys said that a couple weeks ago. I was watching the show, or maybe it was last Monday or whatever day it was, and I'm messaging y'all. And as you were talking about him falling in the draft, even though most people tell you they still think he's a top half of the draft type of prospect, even in a down year for quarterbacks, I was like, oh, the Steelers would be great. And then you said Steelers. I was like, I don't know if when they're drafting, if he's still going to be there. Are they picking
21, I think.
They're 21, they're right behind the Broncos?
Yeah.
If he's there, because the Broncos aren't taking him at 20, doesn't mean someone won't trade up. Steelers are a perfect destination for him.
I agree.
we know what comes with the Jets. If they decide at 7 they're going to go there, I understand they just gave Justin Fields some money, but that's not a lifelong commitment. Nashville, it's going to take a long time for Tennessee to really get where they need to, and he'll have to battle with Will Levis. But if they love him, great. Cleveland is its own dumpster fire, with apologies to our pal Shelby Harris. It is. And then after that, you start to see where can he potentially just grow.
Mm-hmm.
This is the one that I'm going to throw out there. You want to get your popcorn ready.
Raiders?
No, not the Raiders, because
let's try to guess.
Maybe Raiders only because of Tom Brady. If Tom Brady likes him, Geno's the insurance. They didn't pay him crazy money. They paid him really good money, and it surprised some people how much they ended up giving Geno at 34 years old. But you're not committed forever to him, and you can get out of it after a couple of years.
Seahawks?
Not Seahawks.
Patriots?
At number 12.
Niners?
Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. Oh. Yeah, you're paying Dak 60, but whatever. Brian Schottenheimer feels like a placeholder for whoever's next. It wasn't for Bill Belichick. I don't know who it's for. You draft Shador at 12, and Brian Schottenheimer's going to have zero say. This is going to be Jerry's pick. There's other places they should go, and you're paying Dak 60. I get it. But if Shador somehow falls to 12 and Jerry doesn't have to move, now Deion's on the phone. Not this year, because none of that makes any sense. But then he gets down there.
The attention that the Cowboys get and all the glitz and the glamour and the sparkle, that from a personality perspective, I could see him
the biggest brand in sports.
A Cowboy.
No question.
Yeah,
I want to see Shador with the Raiders. I think it's good for the division. I think it'd be good for football. I think it'd be cool because of his relationship with Tom Brady. I think Pete Carroll would be good for him. I think the glitz and glam of Vegas is good. All of that would be good. And so maybe he's still there at 6, or if they don't like
problem
that,
is they get that ass whooped up every year by the Broncos, Chiefs, and the Chargers.
Yeah. And so
that's not a problem.
There's that.
We'll take it.
It's not a problem for me. I'm happy about that.
Yeah.
I love it. But I could see, that's definitely a good thought.
Jerry's such a wild card, and he runs the show. So no matter what his son Steven says, no matter what Will McClay says, who's done a great job. Will McClay in the last 8 years has drafted 7 All-Pros in the first round.
Is Jerry the most stubborn man on the planet? He might be.
He's up there. There's other people we could think of that are in the news a lot that are similar. That
even if he's wrong
stubborn.
According to the masses, it's his
he don't
way,
care.
and he doesn't really give a crap what you think.
Care.
He bought the team to run the team, and he said that he bought the team because he wanted to run a team, and it's his team.
And he's been doing that. Hasn't he?
And then Travis Hunter is going to be interesting to see who takes him and how they want to use him. The conventional thinking is play him at corner, and then figure out wide receiver packages to use him. Both Andrew Berry and then defensive coordinator that I talked to at the combine, but Andrew Berry, the GM of the Browns, like, he's a receiver first in my eyes, and then we figure out how to use him on defense, because that is the hardest thing to do. And there's a reason receivers get 30 and corners get 24, but the best corners are harder to find. There's a lot more great receivers than there are great corners. Great corners we can name on one hand. Great receivers might take more than 2 hands. That you're like, that guy's a true number 1.
Yep.
Those don't exist at corner past like 5 guys.
Yep. Yeah, I would play him at corner and find ways to work him in at receiver as his career went on, as his season went on, but don't put too much on his plate right off the bat.
I was gonna say prioritize one, and then
because to be like he's not a polished receiver. He's a raw receiver. And so the type of work you're going to need to put in at receiver to get better at running these routes that you've never run before. You're going to be running routes at depths and with looks and reads and things and learning concepts and names for everything you do out there that is all going to be new for you.
Right.
And so aside from the language you're going to have to learn, the technique that you're going to have to improve on requires you doing that every day, all day. And so if you're also playing defense, you're also learning that system, you're also trying to cover these guys, to me, it would be a mistake to just throw it all at him right away.
Well, and to your point, the same way that he's not a polished receiver right now is probably the same way he wouldn't be a polished receiver juggling both on the highest level, which is the NFL.
Against the best defenses in the world.
I think you could argue if he had spent his entire college career or his time under Coach Prime as just a receiver, he'd be far more polished. So again, you have that. It's a give and take.
But he probably wouldn't have won the Heisman.
Of course not. And so
he helped them on defense. It wasn't like he was out there playing defense.
Everything is give and take in life in general. But you could argue, is there a world where Travis Hunter is doing himself a disservice by not giving his all into one and trying to divide his time? Because and you've spoke about this very transparently, that it's not just the physical aspect. Like, yes, your body holds up. Good for you. It won you the Heisman, and we are all in awe of your talent. But the mental side of football as well is a lot for any human being to juggle both. And also the wear and tear that your body goes through on the collegiate level is much less than what you will deal with in the NFL. So I think it's just about how long does he want to be playing? And does he want to be the best at one or okay
Jack
at both?
of all trades
But I think
or pretty good at Jack of all trades and master of none.
Yeah.
So I think he did everything he was supposed to do leading up to this point.
Of course.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't think he should have done focused on one. I think he showed his array of skills, his talents, and now it's up to the geniuses in these NFL teams to put him in the right position.
Sarcastic, Nate.
Sometimes we assign a little more intelligence to these men than they deserve.
I agree.
But I think that it's up to these guys now to put him in the right position to use his talent. It's not on Travis now. Travis goes where he goes, and he opens himself up to however they want to use him. And hopefully they use him the right way.
I agree.
Yeah, the only pushback on it goes without saying, had he have just done one, he'd be further along. But he's 21, 22 years old. He's not a finished product. Like, I appreciate Marvin Harrison last year not wanting to deal with any of the pre-draft bullshit and worry about the combine drills and worry about pro days. He's like, tape's out there. My dad's in the Hall of Fame. I have a pretty good idea what I'm doing. I'm just going to go run all the routes I need to learn at the NFL that are different than what he ran at Ohio State and be ready to go to be the best receiver for whomever takes me. And that was the case when he was healthy this year. He looked ready to go at 21, 22 years old. But he's not a finished product either. So he'll just continue to become a good receiver. I'm excited to see if Travis Hunter can be as unique and revolutionary, if you will. And I don't think there's more Travis Hunters coming behind because of just how challenging that will be for any kid playing football at any level to do in college and in the pros. So it's not like Steph Curry changed the way people play basketball. And we can see the way that has changed the game. Travis Hunter isn't going to all of a sudden make everybody a two-way player, every best player. The best players have always been two-way players in high school, and then it whittles down. But I'm excited to see if he can really be Chuck Bednarik and really play, or even what Deion was. Because Deion did, I guess Troy Brown to a lesser degree, but really Deion, because Deion scored 6 of the 7 possible ways you can score in the NFL. The only thing he never did was throw a touchdown.
He kicked a
scored a touchdown all 6 ways.
Oh.
He scored the 6 ways you can score a touchdown other than throw one.
Okay.
I just think there's a world where Travis Hunter just has to, and I'm sure this just comes with polishing Travis Hunter in his media training, the mentality of it all, because in that, when we watched those clips of him talking, it was like, I'm listed as both. It's like, well, just mentally prepare that you may not be doing that forever. You may have to, and actually the other part of it that he may have to swallow is that it's not up to you.
Yeah.
So there's a world where these coaches know exactly what they want out of him, and they're going to train that, and that's the role that they need him for. And I have no doubts he's going to be successful on the next level because he's an athlete. He's talented. He's got a lot of potential. So the choice may not be his, and this may not be as smooth as it was in college because it's just very different. So I think as long as he knows that, and the fans that love and watch him play football know that, he will be just fine.
Yeah.
So
one more thing about Travis.
Yeah.
He'll be, if I had him as a full-time corner, I'd also use him as a decoy on offense because, if Travis he goes out there, their antennas are going to go up and they're going to be following him and watching him. And so there's a world in which you put him out there just to draw attention and you do something else. Now, you're still going to throw it to him if he's open and create some opportunities for him, but just the
jet sweep, fake action
just
stuff.
The attention that he will demand from being out there because of his two-way ability is going to create some opportunities for other players on the field too. So
I really hope he ends up somewhere with a creative coach, a coach that is full.
Yeah,
like
he
if
needs
he ended
one.
up he's not going to end up in Miami because their draft pick's too low, I think. But Miami with Mike McDaniel, with Kyle, with Sean McVay, with Sean Payton, with Andy Reid, one of those guys, Kevin O'Connell to a lesser degree, and Ben Johnson. He's not going to end up in any of those places, I don't think. Kevin Stefanski's been coach of the year, just not as overly creative as those guys.
Right.
I would love it because you're like, who knows what the hell they're going to do with this guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's wrap things up with a 2-minute warning here. I mean, we're on track with all things Buffalo and Buffaloes and CU and all that good stuff. But BK, this is going to be your moment to shine here. You and I were chatting, all of us were chatting ahead of the show about what this coaching room looks like for Colorado. So I want you, in 2 minutes, BK is going to elaborate on, of course, losing Travis, losing Shedeur, may have lost the appeal with CU for a lot of players. But in 2 minutes, explain why it is still a great destination for great athletes, given what the coaching room looks like. 3, 2, 1, begin.
So you already have Pat Shurmur, who's been an NFL head coach. And I
Yep.
understand it's easy for Broncos fans and other people that are like, he's not the most creative play caller. Their offense was still really prolific last year, and it had to do with the players. Robert Livingston is a guy that came from the NFL, is in tears because he was so thankful of the opportunity. Had NFL teams calling him again. He's calling the defense. He's back. He had Warren Sapp, Hall of Famer, coaching up the D-line last year. They had Phil Lodeholt, who's now moved on, but they've replaced him with another good O-line coach. He played in the league forever. Warren Sapp's in the Hall of Fame. They're not bolstering that. Warren Sapp's assistant is Domata Peko, who's the perfect energy guy opposite of Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp's wired a little differently. Domata is always smiling. Hey, bro. I mean, he is, Pacific Islander, Polynesian, SoCal. Great to see. Like,
and that connects him with the Polynesian crowd too.
Yeah.
Right?
So, and he played 14 years in the league. Don't be surprised if we start seeing some Polynesian kids coming to Boulder like we have over time. But again, and then the running backs coach isn't just some ordinary running backs coach. It's maybe the best, the most talented running back we've ever seen in terms of dual threat in Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk was as good a route runner, pass catcher, and was great between the tackles too. And that's why he was a top 5 pick, top 7 pick, and a gold jacket first time out. Helped the Rams win a Super Bowl, was great in Indy as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's their running backs coach.
Yeah.
So Dion came with his Louis luggage, which was Shador, Travis, and a couple other guys that were okay. Got Jordan Seaton last year, the highest tackle prospect in the country in terms of rating, highest offensive lineman they've ever had at CU. He stuck around. More guys from IMG are coming. Juju Lewis, best quarterback in the country, one of the best quarterbacks in the country, coming, because now it's about, Dion not only took his son, Travis isn't his son. And Travis came with Dion and is a Heisman winner and a top 3 pick. I want to go there because look at that. T.O.'s always around. Michael Irvin's always around. Lil Wayne's always around. Boulder is truly a destination. It's not of the Louis that he brought. It's the Louis he's now bringing in.
Booyah.
Wow, Brandon.
Woo!
Wow.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like they are set up for success beyond Shador and Travis. And I think what's going to be really cool about it is, to your point, Coach Prime proving, yes, Shador and Travis were just, they were phenomenal players and athletes and whatever, but he doesn't need them to be successful, just like they don't need Coach Prime to be successful. It's a time for all of them to just
go their separate ways.
Go their separate ways and keep thriving. That's what we hope for.
Lot to prove, though, for Coach Prime.
Of course.
His
Travis,
his coaching
and
ability. He's not going to have that Louis luggage to lean on, the one he originally brought.
Yeah.
So big season for those guys at CU.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, this has been another Guerrilla Sports Off Field. I'm Liv Moods. That's Brandon Cristal, a.k.a. BK. And that's Nate Jackson. And we will be back next week for more all things football, twice a week, sometimes 3 times if there's extra stuff to talk about. You never know. But make sure you guys are tuning into all things Guerrilla Sports. You can subscribe to our YouTube as well as follow us on all of our platforms. This has been another Off Field presented by Trusted American Mortgage. You can head to trustedamerican.com to see how they can help you save some money, getting you a better interest rate, and lowering your monthly payments. Shout out to our friends at Trusted American, and we'll see you guys very, very soon. Bye.
Bye.